While Skyrim is not a stealth game with thieving at its core, it does have content and mechanics about thieving, and I would like to see those improved. This video will be going through the problems of pickpocketing in Skyrim and how I would change them in general and in ways that are reasonably actionable as examples. This will include a perk overview and a remade perk tree. Afterwards, I will then show an example of how I would make pickpocket work in the Elder Scrolls 6. The first major issue with pickpocketing in Skyrim is that it isn't well supported. There's almost no content for it, with the majority being the Radiant quest from the Thieves Guild. The way you fix this is to add in a lot more content and revise old content around pickpocketing, from new quests, an expanded Thieves Guild storyline, and dungeon redesigns to provide greater opportunities for pickpocketing. The more easily actionable way you work on this problem is two parts. The first is working on the Thieves Guild Radiant quest to better produce pickpocketing opportunities and make the whole system work better. The most basic improvement is a mod that literally just lets you take all the quests at the same time, so that you can have 5 things to do between going back versus going out, doing one thing, coming back, and repeating. The other would be to update the way NPCs reset their inventories. Right now, they don't reset their inventories, so once you pickpocket a valuable, it is gone. A simple fix is to let NPCs generate inventories over time, such as each NPC having an internal gold value, that they generate items over time until they reach that value, and regenerate items when they drop below it. That brings me on to the second problem, which is the binary nature of being able to pickpocket. Once enemies have somewhat noticed you, the pickpocketing function is no longer possible, and as such, even redesigning dungeons wouldn't add as much as it should. This is a simple fix with letting you pickpocket people while they're partially triggered, all the way to potentially while fully in combat, even if you do need perks for that, and or if it comes at increased penalties to success. Pickpocketing in combat would be with the assumption of a timer on how long until you can pickpocket again after a failed attempt. Stolen items are a bad mechanic. It doesn't really make sense how completely fungible items are known to be stolen by anybody, and it isn't fun or interesting to have all stolen items removed from your inventory, or to be restricted in who you can sell minor stolen items to, like a bottle of mead. This is especially annoying when you pickpocket a bandit and items you take are stolen, but if you kill them and take them, they are not. A solution to this is to make hostile enemies not produce stolen items while pickpocketing, and to introduce some method to distinguish between items of quality that will count as stolen versus those that will not, such as gold or lockpicks, even if by perk. The next problem is the math. It isn't very good at making it fun to pickpocket. The biggest issue is the cap on how likely you are to pickpocket something being at 90%. So if we rethink that, it is 1 in 10 times we will fail and get caught no matter how good we are. And if we are stealing 5 items a person, then about every other person we try to pickpocket will catch us despite having the maximum chance. One change to fix this is to push the cap to near 100, 100, or to 100 with perks. The other part of the math is that the bonuses are linear along with the penalties to weight and gold value also being linear, but they don't quite even out in the end for a master pickpocket. This could be dealt with by altering the system heavily into a sort of scaling system or perfectly balancing it. But that is an aggressive amount of work, and we can do enough with less effort. So add in some perks to alter these scaling values to let pickpocket function at higher weight and gold value items so that masters are masters. The final issue I'm going to bring up before the perk tree also goes back to the content, and it is leveling. Leveling pickpocketing is horrible if you aren't exploiting the game, using trainers, or both, as those aren't fun methods that pull you into the game. Leveling then results in you having to extremely slowly go up to bandits to steal almost nothing off them before going into combat. Then with the current stolen system, you have some stolen meat on your person. You aren't gaining the high bonus damage to sneak attacks for getting up close to them, and if they trigger at all, you can't pickpocket them. The other method is just stealing in cities, which the consequences of are aggressive for how little the player has control. You can level a bit faster off of special items like gems, but named NPCs don't have their inventories reset. Beyond this, the consequences are quite aggressive, from being frisked down and charged to having to serve jail time and lose experience on your skills. The whole system just doesn't work very well. Each of the previous changes would help this, but more can be done. To aid leveling beyond this can be done with experience buffs to increase the amount you gain. This could be done with a change to the amount of experience gained, a flat amount for successes being added on, and experience based on the weight instead of just the gold. I think the addition of all of these would help make it feel a bit better to pickpocket and level. Now onto the perk problems. I should note that even when playing thief characters, I don't take pickpocket perks, and despite common community sentiment, the perks in Skyrim aren't terrible and often hit most major concepts. That said, the pickpocketing ones aren't very well executed, and the other problems make what is there feel even worse to take. So to start off with evaluating what Skyrim currently has is Light Fingers, the 1 to 5 perk points and 20% to 100% increase at the start of most trees. This is fairly boring when you could be doing a lot more interesting stuff in addition to the 20%, or grant a larger bonus alone and grant the more interesting stuff in their own perks. Night Thief is goofy, granting additional bonuses to pickpocketing while the target is sleeping, and it could be cut, incorporated into the basic pickpocket calculations, or integrated into other perks in a more interesting way. Cut Purse makes pickpocketing gold easier, an interesting concept to make certain items easier to steal, but in a flat system where very few people have any large amounts of gold, it will be about worthless fairly quickly. In addition, you also need 40 pickpocket to get this perk, which means you can already have a 60% general bonus from the first perk. This will max out most gold amounts on characters you will actually encounter without needing this perk. The major exception to this is trainers, because you can pickpocket them to get the gold you just spent on them back. This perk has an interesting thought, but could probably be cut or shifted down close to the start so that it is useful for the content that this game actually has. Next up is Keymaster, where pickpocketing keys almost always works. Keys are not valuable or heavy, so they are actually the easiest thing to pickpocket in the game, except for lockpicks. Also, for one, I have literally never done this in over 1,000 hours, and there's basically no content as to why you would need to do this, and it probably won't affect your odds at all, partially since you require at least 60 skill just to take this perk. This is a horrible perk and could be removed just due to the content and the placement. Misdirection allows you to pickpocket equipped weapons, which is very cool and should really be a lot closer to the bottom so people can actually use it, but also the detection system does put a bit of a damper on it. Perfect Touch allows pickpocketing equipped items, which is also cool like Misdirection, but it is even worse as you need 100 pickpocket to acquire this, which places this at the pinnacle of the tree. Extra Pockets increases carry weight. I hate this one, as this is a generalist perk that they shoved into this tree. If I want more carry weight, there should be no reason to feel the need to be a pickpocket. A perk with potential use, but not here, nor anywhere really in Skyrim's skill perk-based system, because any place would mean you're putting something everybody should have access to if they want to in a specific skill. Finally is Poison, which allows for reverse pickpocketing poisons to trigger on the enemy, which is great. But since you could get multiple uses if you just applied it to your weapon in the alchemy tree instead of the one-use reverse pickpocketing, I think there should be something more here for actually doing this. Now for how I would shift up the perk tree in Skyrim. I'll be sticking with a few rules for this. First off is that it must have 12 perk points, as this is what the base tree has. It must follow base tree rules such as requiring previous perks and only having skill requisites for pickpocket. It will also be under the assumption that sleeping targets have an innate 25 bonus against them for pickpocketing, and combat pickpocketing is possible. Light Fingers will increase your bonus to pickpocketing by 0.5 per skill, increased to 1 per skill. It also increases the maximum chance to pickpocket to 95 and then 100, with an additional bonus to gold of 25 and 50. This perk grants solid bonuses that increase over time and a boost to gold, so early game is a bit easier to grab the basic item of value. The increases to the maximum give the player a distinct advantage to those who didn't touch the pickpocket tree, along with easing and eventually removing that problem for those who invest in pickpocketing. Night Thief is 1 perk point with a requirement of 30 skill. It increases the bonus on sleeping targets from 25 to 50, and you can now pickpocket weapons and jewelry on sleeping targets. Equipped weapons and jewelry have a penalty of 25 to pickpocket. This perk early on allows for the theft of gear in specific circumstances and grants you a greater boost to sleeping targets to increase the situational advantage for thief players. Quick Hands costs 1 perk point and has a requirement of 50 skill. You can pickpocket while in combat, you can pickpocket equipped weapons and jewelry while outside of combat, and you can pickpocket equipped armor and clothing on sleeping targets. Equipped armor and clothing have a penalty of 50 to pickpocket checks. This perk initiates the concept that being able to pickpocket equipped items and pickpocketing combat is a scale. Thus, armor gets introduced to sleeping, while weapons and jewelry are in general, and combat pickpocketing is created. Misdirection is 1 perk point with a requisite of 70. You can pickpocket equipped weapons and jewelry in combat, and you can pickpocket armor outside of combat. This is the next step in the line and starts allowing combat applications with weapon theft while allowing you to start stealing everything from people in general as a show of pickpocket skill. The final perk in the main line is Perfect Touch for 1 perk point and 100 requisite. This perk allows for pickpocketing armor in combat and reduces equipped item penalty by 25 down to 0 for weapons and jewelry and 25 for armors and clothing. This perk is the mastery of the skill with you being able to control an opponent's inventory while in combat. Next up is the side branches, with the first perk being extra pockets off of light fingers for up to 2 perk points with requisites of 20 and 60. Extra pockets makes items with value less than your skill, increased to less than 10 times your skill for the second perk, no longer marked as stolen. In addition, it grants a 25 bonus to alchemy ingredients, food, and keys, with the second point granting the bonus to miscellaneous items, books, and scrolls. This perk removes one of the issues with pickpocketing and grants a little boost to early pickpocketing for certain items. The second branch is poisoned off of the Night Thief perk for 2 perk points at 35 and 55 skill. The first perk is the vanilla effect of being able to reverse pickpocket poisons to trigger on enemies with an additional bonus of 25 to pickpocket poisons. The second perk increases the effect of reverse pickpocketed poisons by 100% and grants a 25 bonus to pickpocketing potions. This in vanilla was a cool perk, and with speccing into this you can increase the effect of your potions, making them more potent than if you applied them to your weapon. The bonuses just help out a bit and flesh out the bonuses to more items. The next perk is Lead Hands off of Quick Hands for 1 perk point and 75 skill. This perk reduces the penalty from item weight while pickpocketing to 1/4, from a penalty of 4 times the weight of an item to a penalty of 1 times the weight of an item. It also grants a bonus of 25 to pickpocketing weapons, clothing, and armor. This perk is just meant to even out the scaling with endgame items to allow pickpockets to be able to pickpocket heavier items and flesh out the bonuses. The final branching perk is Golden Eyes off of Misdirection for 1 perk point at 85 skill. This one decreases the penalty based on value by 1/2, from gold value divided by 10 to gold value divided by 20. It also grants a bonus of 25 to pickpocket jewelry and jewels. This perk, much like Lead Hands, is meant to make expensive endgame items easier to pickpocket, and fills out the last item categories with their 25 bonus to pickpocket. I feel this tree pushes outside the bounds of the original, but in ways that greatly increase the usability, cool factor, and experience of pickpocketing. While some perks in a reimagined Skyrim may be better as default rather than locked behind perks, I feel that these perks integrate well into the current system of Skyrim in a way that makes the problems feel closer to an expression of character skill that can be overcome with perks rather than design and engine decisions, constraints, along with development realities. The main path provides an increase to the depth of pickpocketing for everybody who pickpockets, while the side choices improve the general ability of the character and provide a unique aspect of gameplay for poisoners. The flat bonuses of various types grants a little extra reward for taking the side perks, while the gold from the first perk will help players early on in gaining experience. In The Elder Scrolls 6, I want to see Thievery be a full pillar of the game, with it having its own faction-equivalent story, along with set-piece quests and radiant content. To have some function in combat, like in the updated Skyrim, along with content and environments it can fully function in, such as dungeons that allow for getting behind enemies to pickpocket them more easily. There should also be a new understanding of how sneaking works, or at least pickpocketing, such as activating a power like a shout button to put you into sneak mode so you aren't awkwardly crouching while pickpocketing people in the streets. With Thievery as a full system of the game, I would make pickpocketing a full independent perk tree like it is in Skyrim. Pickpocket as a full system can be done in a number of ways, and I have an example of one potential. This example system will lean away from the lockpicking minigame concept, where the player's skill is the primary means of success, but will have some player ability to affect their odds, and a more interesting system than Skyrim's flat percentages. The core of the system is splitting awareness of pickpocketing into 3 stages: unaware, suspicious, and alert. Suspicious and alert will come with increasing penalties to successfully acquire the item, along with your attempt to be detected. The core of the system is that when scrolling through pickpocketing on a target, it will show your current stage and the odds of you acquiring the item, the odds that you will advance to suspicious, and the odds that you will advance to alert. At the top, it'll have an attention bar which will fluctuate based on the conditions, such as if they are in a conversation with you or a separate conversation. This may all be dynamic with moving heads in motion, or it could be binary like being in a conversation, running, or in an idle animation, depending on the technology and feel of it. This can also be expanded to add more versions of this, such as if you are sneaking, it reduces awareness failure and increases pickpocket chance, but it converts all suspicious into alert as they view you as a thief upon detection. This system can also be incorporated into relationship or fame mechanics, with friendly people assuming you bumped into them, resulting in reduced alert, while guards may assume you are a thief and have increased alert chance, and companions just allowing pickpocketing or calling you out but not forcing any consequences, allowing for the leeway granted from unaware to change based on the world. This is a real-time system with notice on the attention bar going up after each attempt to then slowly decay down. It can be pulled up into a pause system, but there will be no notice decay while paused, basically inside Fallout 4 quick loot versus Skyrim pause looting. Inside the pause will be an option for more advanced pickpockets such as poisons or forcing them into different pieces of armor. Unaware is the base chance to succeed, along with the chance of going suspicious versus alert. Suspicious has certain penalties like reduced noise drawdown and reduced chance at success, along with certain attempts no longer being categorically possible, or at least having a reduction such as weapon theft or reverse pickpocketing. Alert would be active combat with certain categories being locked off and failure resulting in all attempts to have a cooldown, while that item failed having a much longer cooldown. This is a system with plenty of space for various additions to increase depth, while the core system is very clear about outcomes and can be modified greatly with usage of perks, skills, and integration into other systems. This example isn't there to say that they need to implement this, but as an example about what can be done to bring about a more engaging and fulfilling pickpocketing system into the Elder Scrolls 6. There are plenty of other potential concepts, be it minigame focused with player skill being dominant, or other character skill driven systems, along with a variety of methods of consequences, success, and engagement. In conclusion, Skyrim's pickpocketing suffers greatly from the content in the game and systems alongside that content. It can be improved greatly in a number of ways without the need of massive overhauls, but without Thief being a core pillar of gameplay, there's only so far Skyrim can go without making a new game. In the next Elder Scrolls, I do hope they consider Thief to be a core pillar of play and make sure pickpocketing can get mechanical and content expansions it needs to let it shine as a loved and important piece of the Elder Scrolls.